Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. In Florida, we proved that it can be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. We showed that we can and must revitalize America. We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
You are so awesome.
Hey guys, welcome to Driveway Liberty Podcast. I am your Uncle Wes, and this is Travis's last cast. But before we talk to Travis a little bit, he may draw a tear tonight. We'll see. I think he had some Bud Light earlier, so he may draw a little tear. But all right, I'm sitting here with Travis and my good buddy Dan. Not that Travis is not my good buddy; he's my good buddy and will remain so. But man, it's his last cast. So there's that. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
Doing good. Travis, glad you can make it tonight.
Well, thank you.
We've got another special guest in the studio.
We do.
Panther is here.
Yeah. My good buddy, our rescue bulldog Panther, is with us. Not because it's my last show, because he decided to devour the bones of a chicken carcass this morning. And
He ate like a whole rotisserie chicken.
and then we fed him a bunch of bread. And then he ate his food, and so everybody was a little worried, you know. And so he's sitting here. He's down here. He's out of the camera. He's pretty lethargic today because he ate a literal whole loaf of bread. So
Yeah, nice. I mean, he's a big boy.
he's a big boy.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you know, my point was he probably pulverized the chicken bones before they went down with
Yeah.
freaking jaws of steel.
Yeah, he's probably gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll
The
be
problem is those dogs tend to chew little and swallow quickly.
good. Yeah.
And I know from giving my dogs treats and stuff, it's just gone.
Yeah.
They
But
don't savor the flavor.
he's a good boy. He'll just lay there, and then
Yeah,
you know,
he's a cool cat.
if he happens to see a squirrel or something, he'll lose his absolute shit. But
Tree rat.
right. So, but I am excited. I feel like end of an era.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess excited is not the right word. It's like kind of excited to be here with you guys for the last time.
A little bittersweet.
A little bittersweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll be back at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm
Sure,
moving
yeah,
away.
yeah.
I'll never see you guys again.
Yeah.
We live in the same neighborhood.
Still-
You know,
we'll still be drinking in the driveway.
So one of my beer drinking buddies, and I think y'all have met him. He's my other Miami Dolphin fan buddy.
He's a good man just for that.
Okay. He's works for a fire department in a town that's not the town we live in. And I'm not going to obviously mention the town where he's going, but he just bought a house up there and is moving. He's like, oh man, we'll get together, we'll still have beer. I'm like, dude, no. It's only like 20 minutes away. I'm like, dude, no, you ain't driving south of that bridge, on that bridge to come in on here and drink. Because I'm barely getting him to go out and drink anywhere now because he's very particular about drinking and driving, which we all are.
Correct. Correct.
Absolutely correct. Yes, we are very strict on the drinking and driving.
Right. But
That's why we record in the driveway.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's like, I know, man, we'll get together. I'm like, dude, I'll never see you again. So enjoy your life. It was cool being a bud with you. Text me sometime. We'll get together at some point in the near future, eventually.
you know, now that we're, you know, a few days out from Memorial Day, anybody that lives west of the Destin Commons or like east of Grayton,
Yeah.
like, all right, I'll see you in the fall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you can meet me for lunch when I'm actually out working,
Yeah.
but I assure you,
I'll
after
meet
4
you.
p.m.
I'll meet you at Trustmark Bank. That's
Right.
about as far.
Yeah.
Grand Boulevard as far.
Like,
as
I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's like somebody asked, oh, Ernie out here at the Outpost. All right, we're playing June 3rd at the Outpost. He was
I
like,
saw that.
he called me and he's like, hey man, do you think it'd be worth doing something on Memorial Day? I'm like, during the day on Memorial Day?
Right, yeah.
No, everybody that's going somewhere is going to be on the water somewhere.
Yeah. No.
And anybody else is not leaving, you know, probably
Look,
a half mile of their
My
house.
boss asked me my plans for next week, and I said, well, I'm totally not planning on working from the boat on Monday. I don't know why you would say that.
Right?
Not gonna happen. I got a big X in my calendar because I'm old school.
Right.
I still have a paper calendar for my
Yeah.
business. I just got a big X.
Do you need like a big desktop calendar? I got some extra.
No, I just got one of those the planners, 1 month when you open it up.
So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I think Kevin Rowley just joined.
What's up, Kev?
The discussion. Kev, we are. I'm sharing the podcast with my friends and family,
We just started talking about Travis,
leaving
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
reminiscing.
So let's do this.
All right.
Yeah. What
All
you
right.
got?
Favorite memory of the Driveway Liberty podcast up to this point?
Man, there are so many
Well,
that I can't recall because we've drank so much on this thing.
early on when we first started this, it was just a drink fest.
Right?
It was literally like, how fast can we get drunk and talk about politics?
Right.
That was kind of the theme of the show.
Right.
And then we kind of got a little bit more serious. But my favorite memory, I have a couple. Number one, the whiskey cast you have never seen.
Yeah.
Right?
The first one-
First one?
First one was great because the first probably 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, was Radio Gold.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
And
It
then
was
after
great.
that,
It just went
the
off
wheels
the rails.
fell off.
Yes.
It went off the rails.
Calling it a train wreck would be unfair to train wreck.
That's right.
I still have that recording. I'm waiting on a certain number of Patreon sponsors before I
To
release
kick it
it
out, yeah.
to the Patreon sponsors.
And that, well, the other one is in Travis's kitchen.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that where you fell down?
When I fell.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one of my two. That's one of when Dan started just housing tequila after
Yeah.
falling down.
We went outside, you know, because when Wes used to smoke, Travis and Wes would, whenever it rained, they'd go outside Travis's back patio there, and they'd have their cigarettes. And I don't like to be alone, so I'd go out there and hang with them. I do not smoke. And we'd shoot the shit. But that time, this was before the knee scooter. I had the crutches.
Right? That was like the day or like
Yeah.
2
It
or
was
3
literally-
days after you had
It was
had the
before
accident.
surgery.
Right?
Right, but it was like a week after because you did that on like a Monday, right? And I think
was
me and
a-
Wes did a cast.
I got home on Sunday night
Yeah.
afterwards, and then that was that Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
3 days after I got home from my Achilles injury. So I had crutches, I didn't have the knee scooter, and I hadn't had surgery yet.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm just in a half cast with a ace bandage around it.
Yeah.
And I went out back with you guys, and it was a little
It's just
damp
like-
because obviously it's raining out,
Right.
so that's why we're doing it in Travis's kitchen. I came back into his kitchen, whoop, and the crutches went right out.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I was in some pain.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Travis, do you have any bourbon? And Travis was like, no,
No.
but I have tequila.
Right?
Give me the tequila. And I was pretty much gone in half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's wearing it out.
Oh, yeah, that was, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, I don't remember what happened on the cast.
It was hilarious.
It was
You got to the
hilarious.
point where you just stopped talking.
Yeah.
You just like stared at it.
Wait until the last 30 seconds or so, then
Right.
you're like, wouldn't shut up.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Wes is like, all right, we got to move on. We got to end the show. I'm like, no, I'm talking.
Okay, so my two are the Mosquito cast, where
Oh, when I was looking at the.
right. So back in the day, we used to do 3 separate casts,
Right?
3 hour long, like a national, a state, and then a local.
Right.
And by that Sunday, we had friends in town, and at like 10 a.m. they started popping champagne. They had brought some craft beers from Atlanta. So by the time we started recording at like 4.
You were hammered walking in.
Yeah. And it didn't get better. And then we get to the local cast, which was the 3rd hour.
Yeah.
I mean, and we started going line by the budget, and I mean,
And I'm getting madder and madder.
You're getting madder and madder,
Yeah.
and I can barely complete a sentence. But I just remember keep saying over and over, Dan, shut up, don't ruin it. I might want to do this one day. And then since you took mine, I want to say I will never forget, as long as I live, probably one of the most powerful congressmen in the nation, sitting in Dan's driveway and just ragging on his garden nonstop.
That was going to be mine.
I fixed it.
Matt Gates sitting there telling you had a shit garden. Exact words, verbatim.
Shit garden.
That's a quote from a congressman.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Our congressman.
Well, and not just like any random Josh, like he's
But he led up to it. He was like, I look around and I see pickup trucks and the Santa sign and a Matt Gates sign and an American flag and then this shit garden.
Right? Yeah.
And he thought it was your house.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
Wes, is this your house? And he's like, no, this is Dan's house.
It was funny. Matt thought he had done his homework. And we busted him a couple of times. Told a bass player joke. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Bass players are assholes.
yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
Travis was like, man, I'm learning bass. So we totally killed the don't cuss in the first 3 to 5 minutes for
I
YouTube.
tried not to.
So YouTube's got their algorithm is such that if you're not supposed to cuss in the first 5 minutes, and we've
Well, can you edit it? Oh, we're live.
No, we're live, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can
Fuck,
listen.
it's over with.
Right, yeah.
Now every other word needs to be there.
Yeah.
No, because that's not good radio.
So
My other, if you want to take the Gates one, my other one is when again we were in my kitchen. That's what magic happened in the kitchen.
It did.
yeah,
And what was funny was most people couldn't realize, but the 3 of us would. Before we got Panther, Coco would be there, and just randomly during the broadcast, she would decide that she wanted to like grab a toy and just go to town. Like,
squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. Yeah.
And you couldn't, if you weren't listening for it, you couldn't hear it in the audio or in the podcast.
But we knew.
But we knew. And I don't know how many times I'd be driving down the road and hear, and I'd just like start dying laughing all over.
Yeah.
But when Dan was the Divide and Conquers.
Oh, snap!
After
Yeah,
6 of them.
yeah.
And then at the last 15 minutes of the show, I'm trying to read a slide because there was a pretty significant quote, and I don't remember what it was about. But I'm trying to read it, and I literally can't read it.
Right.
So I pick up my laptop and I aim it to Travis. I'm like, here, you read it. Travis is like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like what is this? You just like point at it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, I try to do. It's like ridiculous. If we ever, when we get to a wide camera, you might see this might be on some outtakes or something. But I used to try to, like when we were audio only, I used to try to signal you guys for stuff, and then Travis would always go, "Dan, what the fuck you talking about?" What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, like I'm literally trying to get you to do this without saying it.
Right.
Well, it's stupid, so don't do it anymore.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's one of those, had we like maybe briefly discussed it at any point before
Good
that, I
time.
think.
Yeah. Our show prep was basically the shared tweets and messaging, and Dan compiling slides.
Right.
And we had
And
no.
we get together like 20 minutes before and
Yeah.
just
Right.
kind of shoot the shit for a few minutes.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of pre-show. Like the whole,
Maybe you can tell.
well, the whole purpose. I mean, but our vision of this is just off the cuff, you know, natural conversation of what people. And Travis was always good at bringing something that he'd sneak something in.
Yeah,
that
he always
never
liked
be
to
a
bring
tweet
that.
or never conversation. And Travis would just, I want to start with this, and he'd play an audio, or he'd say, you know, he'd read somebody's tweet or whatever, and then it literally would take half of the show and all my. I'd do 20 slides, and we use 2 of them.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of just having organic conversations. And, And so let me be the first to say, without, get it, Panther. Without, his ears were apparently itching a little bit. But I mean, you know, there's going to be a missing element, obviously, without Trav on the show, and there's no doubt about that. One of my favorite shows was before we actually started recording.
Oh, back in the COVID days?
Back in the COVID days. Well, now we started in the COVID days. I mean, we'd have started opening up as a state, but we actually started in June of 2020. But the pre-COVID days was kind of like the idea. What are you doing?
Panther, come here.
What are you doing, boy?
He's looking for another chicken to eat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
He's like, somebody, these fat guys, somebody's got a rotisserie chicken.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we were sitting in the driveway one night. It was late. It was after the cops had shut us down, and one of our mutual friends came over that's a little bit more on the liberal side, and it was the first time Dan had met her.
Yeah.
And Dan and her are just going back and forth. I'm just making smart ass comments the whole time. I look over at Trav. Trav was making smart ass comments too. And then a few minutes later, Trav wasn't saying shit. I look over, dude's, I mean,
Literally
just
sleeping.
snoozing
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a sumbitch. He's just like, you know.
I've seen Travis fall asleep sitting up. I'd have to take off my shoes
Yeah. Yeah.
to count the
Look,
amount of
it's really
times.
not a feat for you to see.
Right.
True.
You
just have to be there.
It's
It's
not
a
some-
simple function of having enough alcohol that I want to
That's
drink.
true.
Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, like if you want to see it, you can see it. Like
That is true.
No doubt.
there's no like you don't need the Wheaties box decoder ring or anything. Like you just have enough alcohol and you'll see it.
There
We
you
got,
go.
we got some new listeners that popped. Or new
Yeah.
watchers, listeners.
Yeah,
whatever you
yeah.
call it, popped
Cool,
up.
cool, cool.
One of my official buddies is in here.
Oh, okay.
Hey Chuck.
Chuck may not
Chip.
want to be called
It's
out.
Chip. No,
Chip,
sorry.
Chuck.
And
you,
Bob.
You
Hey,
don't
Bob.
even know.
All right.
Softball dad.
Okay, cool.
Chip and
What?
Bob.
We're going to reminisce throughout the show tonight, but I want to point out to what we opened the show with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we probably should discuss that.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Heavy D has finally announced.
Big surprise.
Yeah. And apparently, I'm getting text now. Apparently, Steve Dace got asked a question and went ham on Trump.
Oh,
So,
in the-
Did he
in the
really?
Twitter
In the
space,
spaces? Yeah. Well, if he was gonna get involved, we knew that was coming, because he's been doing it every show pretty much when you talk about the election coming up.
And had we known in advance that we would be competing with a Twitter space with Heavy D in it, we would have probably pushed this off another night.
Well, good news is it started about an hour before
Yeah.
it started.
Well,
So,
one of the
well,
technical
kind of
issues.
technical, it's
Yeah, I mean,
scheduled to start.
I feel bad for pulling listeners from the governor.
Right,
That's what I
absolutely.
kind of feel bad about.
Well,
You know?
I don't feel.
All 8 of
I
them.
mean, I feel like you should have run it past us anyways.
Yeah,
Sure,
listen,
sure. He would.
You can avoid these scheduling conflicts if you just communicate.
I think he should have made the announcement sitting right here.
He should have.
Yeah.
We've invited them.
Probably wouldn't crash as
Yeah.
hard as that Twitter space did.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely. But anyway, I think. Look, I saw that ad before the Twitter space kicked off because they actually dropped that a few minutes before the Twitter space. And man, I had hair standing up on the ends of my arm. I mean, I was legit like, oh, that's badass. That's exactly how I felt about it. I'm sorry I lost you all in this.
No, it was
No,
good.
sorry. Like my phone's blowing up because of the DeSantis Twitter space.
Right.
But yeah, so I thought the announcement was good, right? And,
Yeah.
And I think the interesting part about announcing on Twitter is what I what I think DeSantis is great at is controlling the environment around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are no leaks ever out of the DeSantis camp.
Which is a good sign.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that tells me he's good at choosing personnel, but also good at controlling the environment and doing it on Twitter,
Right.
right, where the political narrative is spun, right? Like it's not real life, but it is where politics happen a lot.
So Matt Boyd, I don't mean to interrupt you, but Matt Boyd brings up an interesting point. He said, lots of noise saying his Twitter announcement was a disaster. Why? It had nothing to do with DeSantis. It had to do with Twitter servers not being able to handle the number of people who logged on to that announcement.
Yeah.
They were, at one point before they had to shut it down and restart it, there were over 700,000 people on it.
Yeah.
And he released that video probably like 5 minutes before it was scheduled to start.
Which pushed more people to that
And then
Twitter
everybody
space.
went, oh shit, let's go. Everybody knew he was going to announce in the Twitter spaces anyway.
Right?
But I mean, I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive that so many people.
We're interested.
And it's a different situation where somebody goes and makes an announcement, does a press conference, but they usually don't take any questions. They just go and announce, do a little speech, and
Yeah.
they're done. To music, and you walk off. In this one, he's literally taking questions. They had a host who was asking questions.
Yep.
Elon would chime in every once in a while.
Yep.
And somebody else, and he was answering off the cuff, nothing scripted, which
Yeah.
is pure DeSantis. He's very, very good at hitting those points. He's very
Yeah.
prepared.
Well, what I was able to hear, to me, it's the contrast between Trump and DeSantis. And I really think that's the only two Republicans have a chance to win.
Yeah.
Is do you want great policy and great governance and someone who understands, or do you want the fight? And not that DeSantis isn't fighting, but do you just want the bombastic, I'm standing on the street corner, I'm talking shit to everybody, we're going to fight it out, right?
Right.
Well, you want to win.
That's what I want.
Yes,
I
you want to
prefer
win.
winning.
And Trump has won some things. I mean, we can't discount Trump's
No, I-
record, foreign policy, the economy. He did a great job for 3
Look,
years.
on foreign policy, hell, maybe the best foreign policy president since pre-World War I.
Right.
To me, it's a toss-up, right?
Sure.
So, and that's great. Our domestic policy, I can't care about the rest of the world because it was my current president who pointed at me and said, because you won't take this experimental medical procedure, I don't think you should have a job.
Yeah.
I don't really care what our policy is on the Congo
No.
or anywhere else. Because I'm more worried about another president looking at me and saying, if you don't get this experimental medical procedure, you're not going to be able to feed your family.
Well, I understand it, but at the time
Right.
that Trump was president, his foreign policy had a positive effect with us domestically.
Yeah.
So we were getting out of wars. I'd say we would spend less money except for all the omnibus bills he signed.
Yeah, I mean,
It was like ridiculous. So I want to read a tweet. Somebody that I respect said this after DeSantis signed. So DC Drano said, people seem to forget why Trump won in 2016. He told the establishment to piss off because he didn't need money from billionaire donors. Voters knew he couldn't be bought by globalists and globalists trust him. The MAGA movement will never get behind someone funded by a rhino establishment. So I replied, I said, seriously, who's funded by the rhino establishment? I said, I remember Trump saying wonderful things about Paul Ryan. Trump signed multiple omnibus bills. Trump banned bump stocks. Trump said take the guns and worry about due process later. I honestly wish Trump was who you portray him to be.
yes.
Unfortunately, he's not.
So the point I've heard a lot from a few different folks is too many people take the way Trump talks to be a destroyer of norms.
Yeah.
And that's not what it is. Like, you talk about the rhino establishment. His first campaign rally was in South Carolina with Lindsey Graham.
Right.
Okay.
Who is
Well, listen-
king of the rhino
Right.
establishment?
To give Trump credit here, he knows the American people. People are sold on that shit all day, every day. Look at how many people think Joe Biden is doing a good job just because he tells them he is.
Right.
Yeah.
So Trump tells you he's the establishment killer, gonna drain the swamp. Remember the whole thing?
Yeah.
And then he
Oh, my
gets
favorite
in
was the-
and just appoints swamp creatures.
Well, my favorite was the Ron DeSantis landing page was just like the head of an alligator kind of sticking above the water. Did y'all see that picture?
Yeah.
And so all the Trump people were like, of course he would choose a swamp creature. I'm like, the FBI, like quite literally every government department is bigger and has more power now than they did when Barack Obama was president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like quite literally, every single one.
Yep.
He appointed Comey.
Yep.
Then he appointed Christopher Wray as his replacement. And it's only gotten worse.
Yeah,
Well,
and just a few weeks ago, or a month or two ago, when Dan was yelling in his garage because it was raining,
Yeah.
and Trump said, well, I think the jury's still out on Chris. Dude, that dude raided your home,
Yeah.
right? And look, here's my biggest issue with Trump, and I've been, gosh, a year and a half now on this. I need to hear something about what happened during COVID, and I'm not looking for a vaccine salesman. Like there's a reckoning that I mean, if you want my vote, and we've talked many times about how important I feel my vote is, then we have to reckon that out. We have to settle it out. And in Trump's first however many months of campaigning, I haven't heard anything, except for he's the father of warp speed, you know, and nobody else can take credit for the vaccines because, you know, he authorized this. I'm like, dude, I don't think that's the win you think it is. But that tells me that he's learned nothing from the entirety of 2020.
Well, how old is Trump now? 80?
He's not 80. I think he's 74, 5, 6, 7.
No, he's,
No, he's not in his 80s.
all right, so.
He's close.
He's
but-
like 78,
So,
79.
yeah,
I
so
mean-
he'll be, all right, so he'll be in his early 80s if he wins. You're not gonna change a 78 or 79-year-old. So Trump, this has always been a winning strategy for Trump. And in Trump's eyes and in Trump supporters' eyes, it was a winning strategy in 2016 because he beat somebody you couldn't beat and then continued on. But the end game is he will never admit that he did anything wrong. Ever.
What do we really think that Hillary was really that unbeatable? I mean,
Well,
she was
I don't
not
think
a
she
great
was, but
candidate.
the prevailing winds at that time was Hillary's going to be the president. There was
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, it was her turn and all that, but she's about as likable as stale Cheetos.
that's true.
Right.
She might be less likable than Trump.
I mean, and I really think, I do think 16 was probably a referendum on Trump. I also think it was a very strong referendum on just who Hillary Clinton is.
Yeah.
Right. And look, again, did Trump accomplish some great things? Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. However, one of the things that, you know, we've got to gently have a discussion, and I really want to dig in, and maybe some of my free time I will, is, you know, Reagan. All you hear from the Republicans is Reagan this and Reagan that. First term Reagan, one of the best in history.
Gangbusters. Gangbusters.
Second term Reagan, I'd say is worse than Obama.
Which is why?
Yeah.
Like you had, like your second term.
I mean, you're talking about
is supposed
amnesty,
to
you're talking
be-
about gun control, you're
Yeah.
talking about bank bailouts and stuff, like just all these things. And so you have to go back and dissect, and we try to think back to 2018, 19, when economy was booming, things were great. I would say the economy was artificially booming a little bit because we were keeping interest rates so low. But anyways, it was a great economy. Like we were deregulating some things, we were
Well, I was happy.
protecting
Well,
our trade.
in all honesty, given what Carter did to the economy,
Yeah.
it wasn't that hard to improve. Now look, I think Reagan's one of the greatest presidents we've had. I still feel
First
like
term Reagan.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily bashing him, but of course he did have the Alzheimer's, so that explains second term Reagan a little bit, and he was also shot at.
Sure.
Which, you know, I can't say that if I were shot at and hit like he was, Would my stance change on gun control? Probably not, because that's like my big.
Sure.
If you rank my issues, gun control is probably 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Isn't the guy who shot him like out now and just kind
I
of
think so.
chilling, doing his thing?
well, Jodie Foster's not telling him to kill anybody anymore.
Well, I hate to interrupt,
It is
but
time.
for the last time,
It is.
it's time for beer.
It is time for beer reviews. Beer reviews.
All right, so since it is Travis's last time, let's go and see what Travis is drinking.
You know, I've made this statement that I feel about Florida right now the way that Robert E. Lee felt about Virginia in 1860. Right? He basically, when obviously the Civil War was about to break out, he said, "How could I fight against my fellow countrymen?" So I had to choose a beer from Florida.
Right.
That was, as I was thinking about this today, I'm getting beer. I had to choose a beer from Florida. Then I also had to say, crap, I got to drive back from Freeport. So I would have gone Hooter Brown, which is probably my favorite Florida beer.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go something, the top 2 or 3 Florida beers. And it has a funny story. I've told it many times. I was in Tampa, and I walked up to for the Alabama-Clemson National Championship game, and I walked up to the bar. And what's the uppity part of Tampa down by the stadium?
Who won that game, by the way?
Clemson. When's
Ybor
the last
City.
time Okay. So we go in this like uppity hipster bar,
Right.
and I had it a few times here. I didn't know how to pronounce High Line.
Right.
And I just said, in my very Alabama accent at the time, "Hey, can I get one of them JLAs?" She's and this like hipster bartender like looks at me like the biggest idiot on earth and like, "Don't you mean High Line?" Like, bitch, I just mean that beer right there. You know what I meant.
Yeah. Why you got to call me out? Right. Yeah.
You could have just handed it to me and said, "Hey, it's pronounced High Line."
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in South Florida. I don't know all these horse sports and stuff. Like, what? Leave me alone. So-
Right. It's just a reason to gamble. That's what it is.
So, anyways, I am drinking the High Line, which is an IPA.
Dan Curry says Trump 76. By the way, go ahead.
From Cigar City Brewing down in the Tampa area. So Cigar City does a great job. So I hope they don't go woke or do something stupid, please.
There you go.
If anybody from Cigar City is listening, I'm begging.
There you go. Daniel.
I am drinking a new beer that I've never had before. It is Cat Shot Lager. So it's from Armed Forces Brewery Company. I don't know where that is, but 5.3 ABV, but it tastes good. Like
Yeah.
it's a lager that's got some hoppy taste to it, so it's pretty good.
I got you.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Hot
Well-
shot, military guys.
Well, along the same lines as Trav, I thought it would be, given what I assume would be an announcement tonight, but wasn't sure, I went and got the beer from the first place I actually met DeSantis, which is Props in Fort Walton Beach, and I am drinking their Flying Coffin.
There you go.
That's a good beer.
It is a good beer.
They got a new brewery open up right here in Freeport, actually.
Are there? Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Mhm. Yeah.
Got a little bit of an alcohol content to that beer.
It's 6.7%, so I won't be drinking a lot of these tonight.
Yeah, I think the High Line, what's it like 730 or something?
Yeah, that's you win the ABV
Yeah.
of the evening.
Well,
Well, it's
for the
his
first,
last
two,
show,
for the
so-
first 2 years,
That's true.
I did go with Miller Lite and rarely won.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
I remember that was our stick we were going with.
Yeah.
I won every week at that point in it.
Well,
Did you,
I don't know,
in
at
the
that
first
point-
year, I was drinking all IPAs.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
That's
right.
competed.
So-
He was competing.
Yeah. So,
Competing.
speaking of your last show, this is actually your last Driveway Liberty podcast, but for fun and a great kickoff, Friday evening. What time y'all think? 7-ish?
Yeah, 7-ish.
7-ish, 8-ish.
8-ish.
There are links on the Driveway Liberty podcast page. There are links in the description here for a different YouTube page, because obviously what we're going to be doing Friday is not necessarily politically motivated or politically involved. Go to the Dudes Drinking Facebook page, give it a like, also the YouTube page, and we will live stream our
A whiskey
only
cast.
a whiskey cast that we have never aired before. and we've done 2 of them for Driveway Liberty, but this is just going to be us
Okay.
sitting in a driveway.
See, I think the plan, like, we have to be better at the planning phase, because the past whiskey cast, we would go set up, and as we're setting up for 45 minutes an hour,
We're drinking.
we're drinking whiskey.
Right.
So
Half my
by the time
bottle
we
bullet's
hit,
gone by
right,
the
by the
time
time we
we
hit
go.
record, it's all downhill, like
Right?
on that real slippery slope down.
Oh yeah. So we'll drink. We won't start drinking until we hit the record button this Friday. But and there's no telling how long.
Sure we won't.
We'll see.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah, but there's no telling how long that cast will go. If you, I'll tell you, we've done these and they are hilarious.
Well, there's one up on that page where we watched the Miami Hurricanes play
Yeah.
the Pitt Panthers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
we were
it
all,
wasn't pretty.
yeah.
it was
Well,
hilarious.
it was hilarious for me and
because
Wes.
we had been drinking all day,
Yeah.
and then we got there and I said, let's set this shit up and record.
And it's me yelling at the TV
Right.
about how bad the Hurricanes are.
It was a lot of yelling.
It was an awful lot of yelling. So
Drunk yelling.
Okay,
But it was fun.
so one more reminiscent. We talked about our most favorite. What's the least favorite that you're willing to say out loud? Memory of the Driveway Liberty podcast. All right, I'll go first.
all right.
It's actually kind of a most and least. We had the town hall,
Yeah.
and we were recording, and we were like kind of making commentary that we never released it. But there was some gold in there, but there was also some times I'm like, oh man, we got some work to do around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But our commentary was gold on it.
Yeah.
It was like the dudes up at the Muppets that sit up top, the old guys. Yeah, that's kind of how it
Oh,
was.
some of our best commentary is when we're not actually recording and we're watching something and we're sitting there texting back and forth or talking shit or
Yeah,
or whatever.
Well, probably my least favorite was the 2020 election show.
The one where the
Oh,
stream
live
kept
stream,
going
yeah.
down,
We did a
going
live stream.
down.
We had people in the driveway.
Yeah.
And we had local elections going on, and we're like literally in an argument with somebody in the driveway who did not have a mic about the $15 minimum wage for Florida.
Yeah,
And it just wasn't good radio. If this person had a mic,
It'd
it
have
would
been
have
great.
been great.
It would have been great.
Yeah, yeah.
But all you heard was us making points and
Yeah, it was
trying
like-
to talk over each other.
It was literally us yelling at the person, doing everything but calling this person an idiot.
yeah,
And apparently you've never owned a business before.
right?
I
Yeah,
remember saying that probably about 10 times.
yeah. You obviously didn't. I really, this is going to sound all warm and fuzzy. You know, I've never really sat down and thought about the least favorite, and nothing right now really comes to mind.
I gotta tell you, I enjoyed that night, even though it was
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, it was a
Actually,
good
it was
time.
more bad radio.
Probably because I am so equipment centric with the show was when we did the first mosquito cast and somebody knocked the little recorder off the table
and broke it.
and broke it.
Listen, it was a good news, bad news situation.
It was, it was.
forced us to upgrade our equipment.
It did. But I'm thinking, damn, man, I mean, shit, you know, I now I've got to come out of pocket and replace this. Unfortunately, we had somebody
Was that when we did it at the
at the brewery or the brew pub.
Oh, the brew pub. Yeah.
Yeah.
and Sturgeon
Oh, yeah.
showed up with his
Yeah,
whole family.
uh-huh, yeah.
Right, and we felt obligated to watch our mouths. I think Panther needs to go out.
Panther,
He'll be all right. Panther, come here, bud.
Panther, don't poop on the floor
Yeah, please don't.
Hey, come lay
because
down.
it will be a large.
Very large.
So-
All right. So that's my last. Let me take him out real quick. Be sure. All right.
All right.
I'll be right back.
All right, fair enough.
Kill some time. 3
Okay.
minutes.
So
Well, we could talk about what we've got.
shit.
Oh wow,
Breaking stuff.
what was that? We can kind of discuss what's coming up for Driveway Liberty Media.
Okay.
Driveway Liberty podcast. We also will be starting, hopefully next week, the Panhandle Liberty podcast, where we talk about more local related information, political information, give commentary on stuff like that.
Yeah, we're in the midst of doing some research.
We are.
to have some facts at hand to talk about the county budget and those things.
And something else that we're really excited about is we are going to also have written content that's going to begin coming out probably in the next couple of weeks. I am actually a much better writer than I am a speaker. And Dan
Is a much better speaker than I am a writer, and I'm not that good of a speaker. So.
But we're gonna be writing some editorial stuff and getting it on the website. So if you don't have the website bookmarked yet, you can go to thedrivewaylibertypodcast.com and bookmark us there.
Well, and the plan is to have some of these extra items. Eventually, we want to get to the point where we have subscribers on Twitter.
Sure.
Where we're going to give these extra content.
Yeah.
Not just tweets like other people. It's like, here's a tweet. It's
Yeah.
like, no, we're going to write articles and provide commentary, maybe some videos, etc., that are going to be subscription only on Twitter.
Yep.
But we got to build up a little bit of a library first.
Well, one of the things we need is we need you to go to Driveway Liberty Media on Twitter and give us a like or a follow there.
Yeah, because that's where it's
We
gonna
need
be.
about 500. We're close. We're getting real close to 500 followers, but we need that, and then we can eventually start live streaming on Twitter as well.
Yeah, so we'll do Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter all
Yeah.
at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the other thing is, we kind of hinted on this too. We're doing the local stuff, but we're also going to be delving in at a separate show.
Yeah,
We're going to be doing some sports.
yeah, that'll be coming towards the end of June, 1st of July.
Yep.
Soon as, when football starts, camps start.
And we may be able to talk
convening.
Travis into coming in and
Yeah, I'll do
sitting
some
on
sports.
some of those
Yeah,
shows.
Come
Yeah.
and do some sports shows.
Especially as we get closer to college football and NFL starting.
Right.
Because we're all football guys. I mean, we follow the other sports. We follow our schools
Yep.
in those other sports.
What
Because right now,
What's the Patreon again? The Driveway Liberty Podcast?
It's no, it's Driveway Liberty Podcast. Patreon.com/Driveway Liberty Podcast.
yeah, pay attention. We need a little love there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that one's it.
Because we'll have an electric bill due in the studio here coming up in a month. So, any help you could lend would be greatly appreciated. So, do we want to play this Joy Behar video?
Oh, give me a second.
All right, yeah, no worries. Let me know when you're ready.
Almost there.
And you ready?
Hold on.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to set it
Yeah,
up
set
before
it
you do it.
up. Sorry.
All right. So the View co-host Joy Behar lectured this South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott after he announced that he's also running for president. Obviously, we understand, based on DeSantis announcing compared to his announcement, who's got a better shot. But also talked about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas on racism, saying neither men understand
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil
what
it.
racism is.
Okay.
All right.
And
all right,
go.
wait, give me a second. Sorry.
Oh shit.
You know what I was doing there?
What?
I was becoming a Patreon subscriber.
Oh, thanks.
All this extra content. I mean,
All right.
Got to be
yeah.
involved.
yeah, right? So,
Nice.
appreciate
All right, you ready for the video?
yeah, we're ready.
All right.
And he's one of these guys who, you know, he's like Clarence Thomas, black Republican who believes in pulling yourself by your bootstraps, rather than, to me, understanding the systemic racism that African Americans face in this country and other minorities. He doesn't get it, neither does Clarence.
Right.
And that's why they're Republicans.
Yeah.
So I'm cutting it off.
So
Right?
how-
So
how's
how
that?
does a white Jewish old lady
That lives in New York,
that lives in New York and is making millions of dollars a year,
being stupid on TV.
how is she lecturing black individuals who believe in pulling themselves up by their bootstraps,
Who've actually done it.
who's actually fucking done
Yes,
it big
done it.
time? What kind of balls does she have to be able to even make that statement without being criticized by anybody else?
Oh, she got fucking wrecked.
Well, she got laughed at on The View because it's not systemic racism if you succeed. It's systemic racism if you choose to be down and
Well,
want
that's
out.
the victim
Right,
mentality.
and even LeBron James, who's going to be a billionaire, who claims that black men are hunted in the streets, right? That's okay as long as you toe the line. See, it's not about like facts or logic or reason. It's about, do you toe our ideological line?
Well, I think there's something deeper here with what she's saying, and that is that Democrats know better than you.
Yes.
Liberals know better than you about your lifestyle, and you should just sit back and take our knowing better.
It's that elitist mentality
Exactly.
where we,
They are
not us, but enough portion of society has literally given up their free thinking to people who have degrees. You got a bunch of degrees, so okay, I'm just not going to critically think about anything. I'm just going to let you be the expert, and you're going to tell me what to do. This is America, and this is the problem with America, is we've just given up our ability to think through issues and decide for ourselves, and we're just going to cite the experts. And the experts are like 1 for 1,000 in the past 4 years.
well. One of
It
my
might be 0 for 1,000.
One-
I'm trying to think of the one.
I've said it on the cast a number of times, and I can't take credit for this, but Neil Bortz used to say this. He's a libertarian. He's actually the one who turned me on to the libertarian ideas initially. He was based in Atlanta, had a house in Pensacola, but his statement was that Democrats are the modern day plantation owners, and they want you to do what they want you to do because they know better than you.
Well, if you've heard any of the immigration debate recently, I think it was Johnson from Georgia, the guy that talked about that Obama was going to tip over at some point.
Right?
Said, well, if we stop immigration, who's going to pick the fruit? And who's going to clean the houses? Like, what did you just say, man? Like,
Yeah, no homes are going to get built.
And so when they talk
The
about
economy
skin color,
will collapse.
yeah, when they talk about skin color, they don't care about skin color at all.
Right?
Do you embrace the victim mentality? Yes or no? Do you embrace the, I've been tread on by white people? Yes or no? And that's really all it is. It does. And that's why you see so many white people that are the trans or gay or all that. They try to act like they're victims. Like, wait, you're white. I thought it was white privilege. I'm real confused here because it has nothing to do with skin color.
No, absolutely not.
It is purely ideological subservience or
To
your
the liberal ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And there's so much that pisses me off about that. I think y'all know even though I'm a member of the REC and the Republican Party, I am still borderline anarchist. I really am, and I do not like being told what to do. And you know what? I want to be left to my own devices, even if I'm making shitty decisions. Let me learn from my own stupidity if I make a stupid mistake. And the Democrats think they know better when they don't. They don't understand. They don't understand economics, for one.
Well, yeah.
They have no idea what is best for me or you or anybody else. It's all about what's best for them, and they're forcing that on us.
The biggest issue, well, not the biggest, but a major issue I see is they discount the abilities and the intelligence of all of the people who provide everything for them. So the people who work in factories, the people who work on farms, they provide everything for these elites who live in these big cities.
Yeah.
And then they discount their thought process, saying they're too dumb because they don't have 5 degrees,
Right.
like they do.
Yeah.
When in reality, if those people just stopped doing what they were doing and backed off everything, we'd probably fix America in a generation. Because
Yep.
all those dumbasses in the city would die off of starvation, and then we could start all over again.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
and
It's a little extreme, but
there's really no other way to put it. The biggest issue in this country right now is white liberal women. Joy Behar, who is probably hasn't struggled, I want to say at least 50 years, has no clue what, for the most part, probably has no clue what real struggle actually is. And Tim Scott, even though I don't like him, but he's a United States Senator.
Yeah.
He grew up in a single mother home, dirt poor in South Carolina.
Yep.
Like, he should be the American dream. He should be what we hold up as a pillar of, hey, I may disagree with him on some things, but this is what's possible, and this is one of the few places on earth that it's actually possible. But
Yes.
because he doesn't, and look, the three of us would not even like label Tim Scott like he's probably a rhino. Like, I don't like him that much as a
No,
as a politician.
other than that gun control speech he made in front of the was it county or city council there in South Carolina, that was where he started getting his fame. He made that.
No, you're talking about Mark Meadows from North Carolina.
Oh, my bad. I mean, I'm way off.
That's okay. That's all right.
He's
But
a
the-
lieutenant governor, but
Yeah, but the thing is, I think some of the problem is when we're looking at these people is we end up putting a moniker on each one based on the issue that they bring forth that either positively or negatively impacts us the most. So when you break down all these people, to me, when I look at voting, I look at the person who, think of when you're trying to make a decision. You got a pro and you got a con list. So I would suggest when you vote, do a pro and a con list on each person so that you're not a one-issue voter. Because there's too many one-issue voters out there.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's what fucks up everything. Because your one issue may be important to you, but fixing or addressing that one issue in the way that it happens most of the time fucks up 100 things that impacts you way worse, but you'll never admit it
Right.
because you're so passionate about
well,
that
and
one
the
issue.
other thing I think a lot of people, liberty-minded, freedom lovers, whatever, conservatives, libertarians, we want to argue. We want to be mentally consistent.
Right.
Okay, so if we say that, and we want to put that value on people we disagree with. So Joy Behar will sit up there every day and talk about how there's systemic racism, black people this, all this stuff, and then talk bad about Clarence Thomas and Tim Scott. And to us, it doesn't make sense.
Like actually be a racist.
Right, because we're trying to be mentally consistent of, okay, well, if all these things are happening, you just gave 2 examples of people who completely overcome that. Why would you not support them even if you disagree with their politics? Because it's not about the baseline of what she's saying. It's not a black issue, a white issue. It's a power issue.
Yeah,
It's a you're going to be ideologically pure to what she believes,
Right.
or it doesn't matter your skin color, who you have sex with, anything.
but what she believes is based in a fallacy.
Correct.
Because the 2 examples that she's cutting down
Yes.
actually prove the opposite of what she believes.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you what, they have weaponized the government against us.
All right, let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I think we have a video that demonstrates that. Sorry.
Oh, snap. We set up Travis and didn't prepare him ahead of time.
Right? Yeah.
We're going to eventually get an intern
Yeah.
who's going to, because
I
we
know,
talk
right.
about this off air, where Wes is kind of the tech guy. He's the buttons and the levers and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
And I get wrapped up
And
in
when
that.
he gets wrapped up, now
And I'm the good looks.
with the 3 of us here, we can play off that. But when Travis leaves and it's just me and Wes, it can't be the Dan show because I can't hold it up. I need Travis, but so we
Right.
need an intern
All right, I'm ready
so that
whenever.
Wes can pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And know who Tim Scott is.
Yeah, right.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
all of the hardships you've gone through. If one of your really good friends, your former colleagues, came to you and said, I have this thing that is being covered up, and I think the American people need to know about it, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them first to pray about it, long and hard. And I would tell them I could take it to Congress for them, or I could put them in touch with Congress, but I would advise them not to do it.
You would legitimately try to protect one of your colleagues from doing what you have done.
Absolutely.
And how do you think that solves being able to shine light on corruption, weaponization, any kind of misconduct that exists with the American people?
It doesn't solve it. But the FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. And we are all examples of that.
I can't think of a more sobering way to end a hearing. I yield back.
So,
All right, I want to give you a real world example of that. So you guys remember the Twitter files? Matt Taibbi,
Yep.
who is not a right wing anything.
no, he's a liberal,
He's a liberal.
or was.
And he exposed the FBI and other government agents. Well, all he did was report it. Like he just got the information and then presented it in tweets.
Right.
So raise your hand if you think the IRS works on Saturdays or Christmas Eve. No one will raise their hand, right?
Right.
It's a government agency. They're not working on a
Right.
holiday or on a Saturday. So apparently on October 24th, 2019, 9 days after Matt Taibbi filed his 2018 tax return, asking Mr. Taibbi to verify his return because he met identity theft criteria and could not be processed until confirmed. The IRS alleged that it sent a second letter to Taibbi on March 23rd, 2020. However, according to Mr. Taibbi, he never got the letter. His accountant never received the letter. And the IRS showed up at his house. All right, I've gotten a couple IRS letters
Yeah.
with my small business, and it's like, okay, you owe a little more, or hey, we screwed up. You got a check coming. Your return was off.
I have never gotten this.
Like they
ladder.
came to his house.
I have never gotten the ladder. I've always.
I did.
got
I
the-
actually got one that my refund went up, but it happened once in 58 years. But they went to his house, and they actually opened up an investigation on him 9 days after he released the Twitter files.
Kind of funny how that works out.
The IRS.
Kind of funny how that works.
And
out.
this is, Jim Jordan's involved in this. This is the whole weaponization of government, that whole group in there who the Democrats like to mock. Like it's a waste of taxpayer money or whatever. They're pulling out examples left and right of people being crushed by our government. So you got somebody who is actually a leftist, not a leftist, a liberal.
Yeah.
But he apparently is an honest one, intellectually honest one, to be able to take, because if you were AOC or somebody like that, and you got the information from, if you were Joy Behar and you got the information from Twitter about the Twitter files, you wouldn't go on The View and present it the way Matt Taibbi did.
Right.
Right.
And it literally showed how the United States federal government is trying to run everything, and if you don't go along, you get destroyed. IRS,
FBI, CIA.
ATF, whatever alphabet agency they have, they'll find a way to come
Well,
after.
you know, we were talking about, I guess it was last week, about how the media, along these same lines, about how the media is influenced by the government. And somebody, one of our listeners, Mary Howard, commented on that episode and said, speaking of Walter Cronkite, and she gave an article where he was actually a CIA operative. So the most trusted man in the history of this country in news, and I say trusted like this, was a CIA operative.
So, and here's my. We can wrap it all back into the DeSantis announcement tonight. Who do I think has a better plan that is executable and will actually execute?
Right.
Of going after.
And who knows how to manage and hire personnel?
Right. So, I think like we talked about with the whole Durham report and all that. I mean, okay, yeah, I mean, all right, okay, now we've got an FBI whistleblower saying, oh, they'll ruin your family. That's not news to me, right? I mean, it's I guess refreshing or reaffirming to hear this person say it. However, like, what are we going to do about it, right? That's always the question. And
Well, I'll go back to last week's show where we had 4 choices, where it's we elect somebody who's going to tell you all the great things they're going to do, or we elect somebody who has actually shown to put legislation in place to stop this shit, or we go on social media and cry about it, or the 4th option, which none of us want, is we exercise our Second Amendment. I mean, those are like the only options. We continue on bitching about it like we always have been, and electing people who don't do anything about it.
Well, and I don't have a lot of faith, because every day on Twitter and in the news, you see a politician say, we need to protect our democracy.
We're not a democracy.
We're not a fucking democracy. So we're running out of time.
Are we?
We're actually we're over time now at this point.
One fucking slot.
Right? Well,
It's fitting for Travis' last show.
We had 3 videos, though, so
3 videos.
it's cool. So all right, so Travis is leaving us. We're hoping he'll come back from time to time and sit in with us.
We'll be back Friday night.
Yeah, well, for the drinking cast.
Dudes drinking.
Yeah, Dudes Drinking. Speaking of which, that's Facebook, Dudes Drinking. Changed the name today. It was 3 Dudes Drinking, but we don't know if we'll have 3 after Friday night or not. So,
well, maybe Dan could be Two-Spirit one night if I'm not there.
Right, yeah, he could be.
Or we'll put Buckus out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Trav, I know you got something you want to say in closing, so let's let you say it.
Yeah. So first off, I want to say, big thank you. We started this 3 years ago. I knew Wes probably better than I knew. Well, I know I knew Wes better than I knew Dan, but I think it more than just a podcast and what I think are hundreds of hours of great entertainment. We formed a friendship and a bond that I think lasts a very, very long time, no matter the podcast. So I really appreciate that. I also want to say thank you to my family. There has been burdens on the family, just time away and those types of things. And wouldn't show up after hammering beers in the driveway all night. But I also want to thank all the listeners, all the subscribers, Patreon subscribers. I would go through locally all the support, but I'd leave somebody out and feel bad. But what I've really thought a lot about the last few days is really, and I had 4 points, and now that I'm 2 highlights in, I don't think I can remember them off the top of my head and go into the details. But one of the points that I've thought a lot about recently is our goal should be to build beautiful things.
Yeah.
And Tucker Carlson recently in a speech talked about there's no great art from communism, there's no great culture from communism, there's no great architecture, none of these things. And so when we talk about beautiful things, and we think about, it's architecture or it's this or it's that, but we have the opportunity to build beautiful things. And the beautiful things may be the Driveway Liberty podcast that does have some effect on some local races and some things happening, right? But really, building a strong family, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Building a strong neighborhood, strong community, all of these things, that is where true Americanism starts. It starts with talking to your next door neighbor, and being there for them. And that way, if your neighbor needs something, you don't need the government. And I think we've lost a little bit of sight. We've started to look at DC to solve all of our problems. But in the state of Florida, in 2023, I am freer, I have more liberties, and I live in a better American culture than I did in 2017 when we actually had a Republican president. So all is not lost, right? We can accomplish all these things, but it has to start at the neighbor-to-neighbor level. It has to start at being sure your state representative. I recently got the Republican Liberty Caucus scorecard, and our state representative didn't have a great grade, so I need to investigate more and follow up with it. But that's where it starts. It to most people, it doesn't make sense that I can live in Florida and be freer under Joe Biden as president than I was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's not a DeSantis Trump thing. That's just a reality thing. So we can do all of these things. And it doesn't start in DC. It literally starts with your neighbor. Build a great neighborhood to where people rely on each other as opposed to the government. And the world changes right there. That's exactly where it changes. If I recently got on the board of directors for a local nonprofit. It's around feeding hungry kids. And, you know, I sit there in these meetings and like that is a true Christian American value. Hey, we don't need the government. We're
Right.
going to solicit donations. We're going to do all these things, and we're going to solve the problems. And I specifically wore it again, even though I haven't watched it, but I only wore it like 3 hours of it. The Be Your Own Hero shirt. Because the hero somebody needs, it's probably your neighbor. It's not flying off to some rally somewhere.
Or it's you being somebody else's
Right.
hero.
It is you, right? And it starts with us. And you know, the other thing, and just kind of what my plans are, is I'm going to take some time off from politics, just in general. Like, I'm not going to listen to a bunch of podcasts. I listen to Driveway Liberty, of course. But I'm just not going to be because I need a mental break. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I want to focus on building beautiful things. And what does that look like? So over the next few months, you know, I'm not out of the fight by any stretch. I'm just going to fight differently than the Driveway Liberty podcast. And so I would just encourage everybody, like, stop looking to DC. One vote, and I don't care who the vote is for, can't solve our problems. It can't do it, right? We have to do this. We have to start with our neighbor, with our neighborhood, then with our community, then with our county, then with our state, and then eventually we get a groundswell of true American values, of limited government, of self-responsibility. But you know what? As it currently stands, we're not going to be there tomorrow. We're not going to be there next year. And whoever gets inaugurated in January 2025, it's not going to be solved then either. We have to make these decisions every day.
Right.
And that's really my thoughts. And I think that as we move forward, you know, pushing our American values and standing up, and I remember the story I told after our post-election mixer of Telemachus, and I'm going to retell it. That was one dude, and he stopped the entire Gladiator games. And to me, I think about that all the time because it feels like we're in, I mean, can you imagine being that one person and wanting that to stop and taking it upon yourself to go walk out on the floor of the Coliseum?
Right.
I mean, you're not going to win. Matter of fact, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And I feel, not that I'm going to die, but I feel that way at points, but then I have to remind myself and tell Telemachus and say, you just started with one guy with the courage to stand up and say, no. So that's kind of my last words. I encourage everybody, be a great neighbor, build the best neighborhood you can, and really start super hyper local. Take care of the needs of the government's inefficient and taken care of. And then don't be afraid to stand up and say, no, not in my neighborhood.
There you go. Well, Trav, obviously you're welcome back anytime. You make the call. You're in full control of that. You just say, hey, I'm ready to come back. And we obviously will welcome you back with open arms.
And you can tell that Travis is still in the fight if you follow him on his Twitter account, Travis Horn Talks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you can tell he may be taking a break, but I got a feeling he'll still be throwing a few tweets out there.
Oh, yeah.
And pretty insightful commentary on Twitter. So he's a good follow.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, hey guys, if you want to see a different cast, tune in Friday evening for Dudes Drinking and Driveway. We want to invite you, if you'd like. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. If you'd like to come join in and hang out while we're doing that, man, you're welcome to do that. Shoot me a message, wes@wesherndon.com, or message us through the Driveway Liberty podcast page. We'll give you the address, And you come hang out and drink whiskey with us.
It's gonna be a big time.
It's going to be a great time. For that being said, for the very last time, maybe, we'll leave it open, for Travis and Dan, I am your Uncle Wes, and we will see you next time on The Drive.
You are so